Is it just me, or does it seem like this happens all the time? We're closing in on the finish of the Daytona 500, and boom, there's a crash. Well, as it turns out, right now, we're on a streak of 7 years in a row with either a last lap crash or overtime. And I'm not so sure we'll ever see a long green flag run to end the Daytona 500 again. Why does this keep happening? Hey everyone, I'm Will. I have some ideas on that, and I also want to invite you to let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm pretty confident this year's Daytona 500 will end with a late race crash, and history is on my side, and you're about to get a really good idea. Let's go back to the start of this streak, 2018. Buckle up, folks. The pack is huge, the runs come quickly, and there you go. A massive crash near the front of the field with 2 to go. By the way, I'm keeping a crash counter. In overtime, Austin Dillon doesn't lift, and Eric Almirola crashes. 2019, big pack, big run, big crash.
And everybody!
Good. Oh, no. Are you kidding me?
They are able to keep it clean for about half a lap, and then there's another crash. Then on the next restart, they make it another half lap before crashing again. They did get through overtime cleanly at least. 2020, right on cue, a crash with 8 to go. This time it's in the back of the pack. Then I'd say a mix of blocking and not lifting leads to another crash.
Oh, 77.
In overtime, I'm confused how this happened, but it is a crash. Another overtime, Ryan Blaney's not lifting, and Ryan Newman's aggressively blocking. Newman goes through a vicious crash that sends him to the hospital.
Down.
In a shower of sparks.
2021, on the last lap, Michael McDowell has a big run. That leads to a big, violent crash at the front of the field.
Oh, and a hard crash.
Does it just have something to do with the Gen 6 car? Well, 2022 would be the first race with the next gen car. Let's see what happens now. Coming to 10 to go, so I'm counting this one. A big push gone wrong leads to a crash. Then, here's a big push into Ricky Stenhouse, and another crash. At least overtime was clean. Now 2023, 3 laps to go, and they've all kept it straight for the last 11 laps. But right on cue, there's a caution to set up overtime, and now that they're all bunched up, there's a big crash. Second overtime, last lap, big push, big crash, and the race ends under yellow. 2024, 9 to go, big push, big crash. And now, coming to the white flag, we're blocking, we're not lifting, and that results in a crash. And the race ends under caution for the 3rd time in 4 years. Do you believe me now? Because I just showed you 17 late race crashes in the last 7 Daytona 500s. Seems like there's a very low amount of respect out there. Everyone's trying to do everything they can to get track position. If you get a big run, you're not lifting, and at the same time, if someone behind you has a big run, you're going to block the heck out of them. But you know what's really bad for your track position? Crashing. And as you just saw in a big way, blocking and not lifting leads to a lot of crashing. Let's go further back into history and see if we can learn anything else. It's 2017, and guys, you won't believe this. A 47-lap green flag run to the end. But wait. Where did all the cars go? Did NASCAR do something to stop pack racing for this race? Well, no. The packs are actually big and tight. This race just saw most of the field get obliterated before we could get near the end. So that's not a good example to point to, but what about 2016? That race needs to be studied because it is a true freak of nature. They ran the final 12 laps of the race without a caution, and look at that running order. Big names are still in contention to win this thing. And it's not like it's single file throughout the field either. They're 3 wide back there. I guess it's a testament to driver skill that they didn't crash. Kenseth doesn't crash his car right here. And we get to watch the closest finish in Daytona 500 history. Like, this is beautiful. Now that's the kind of finish I want to see. Unfortunately, 2016 is kind of the exception because I dug a little deeper into history and the 10 Daytona 500s before that went the scheduled distance all saw a crash inside the final 10 laps. Well, if you go back to the start of that streak, what year is it? 2005. What happened then? Well, let's see. It's the first year of the green-white checkered finish. And the Daytona 500 would see a lot of those. Then look at 2010. It's the first 500 with double file restarts and multiple attempts at a green-white checkered. Both of these changes were very caution friendly. I mean, just look at 2010. 4 crashes inside the final 10 laps. Then before 2011's race, they repaved the track. Daytona used to be about handling and cars would separate a little more. Ever since the repave, we haven't seen too much of that. Now we see these large packs throughout the race, and it's kind of like roulette with race cars. Hope you're in the right place at the right time and don't get caught up in a crash.
Oh, Kurt Busch! Around off the bumper of Blaney.
Guys, here's the reality. Only 2 Daytona 500s, 2 in the last 20 years, haven't seen a crash inside the last 10 laps. Take a look back at the Daytona 500s before 2005 and before green-white checkers were introduced. You would still have late race cautions, sure, but they were a much more rare occurrence. It was not uncommon at all to see a race run green to the end. So what happened? Again, I think it's a lot of things. Driver behavior has changed, bigger runs, bigger blocks. Now we have overtime, double file restarts, tighter packs. I think the sense of safety may have something to do with it too. Daytona unfortunately has seen a lot of fatalities in its history. Thank God there haven't been any in nearly a quarter century. But you try some of those moves they tried today, back in the day, and it could have serious consequences. It is still possible to get injured. We saw that with Ryan Newman in 2020. But it definitely does not happen as frequently as it used to. To answer the question I posed as the title of this video, will they ever stop crashing at the end of the Daytona 500? I honestly don't think so. For all the reasons I've laid out, it's pretty much inevitable that we'll see at least one crash inside 10 to go in every 500 going forward, unless the drivers have a massive change in their behavior or NASCAR changes the cars or the track. I don't see anything stopping this. The only way we get a long green flag run to the end is if nearly the whole field gets wiped out early in the race like we saw in 2017. But hey, if any drivers are watching this, prove me wrong. Seriously, please prove me wrong.